they thought no one would ever find out. Whispering in corners. Laughing in places they thought were invisible to me. But what she didn't know was, I'd already set the stage. And when I booked a table for her parents at the exact spot where they met, her secret died that night. This isn't just a story. It's a lesson about betrayal, silence, and karma's perfect timing. If this hits home, like the video, share it, and subscribe for more real stories that show what karma can do. I've always believed betrayal starts quietly. It doesn't walk in wearing a red flag. It slips in wearing a familiar smile. That's how it happened with Alara. I didn't notice the storm because, at first, everything still looked calm. If someone had told me back then that one day I'd be standing in the ashes of the life we built, I would have laughed it off. She was my home, my peace, my everything. Or at least that's what I thought. We had our little rituals, small moments that made our world feel solid. Sunday coffee on the balcony. Long drives to nowhere, just because being next to her felt like enough. She had this way of laughing that made the world shrink until it was just us. I never imagined that same laugh would one day become proof of how blind I'd been. There wasn't a single moment where things suddenly changed. It was more like a slow fade. A warmth that quietly slipped out of the room while I was still convincing myself it was there. It started with late replies, short answers, less eye contact. She began dressing up for work like she was meeting the world, not just walking into her office. I told myself she deserved to feel beautiful. I didn't realize she was already dressing for someone else. At night, I'd wake up and see the soft glow of her phone lighting up the room. She'd turn it face down like nothing happened. I wanted to believe it was just work. But the thing about intuition is, it whispers first. And when you ignore it, it eventually screams. Mine was starting to whisper louder. I remember one evening we sat on the couch, the TV playing something neither of us was really watching. She was there, but not there. Her body leaned toward me, but her soul was already miles away. I asked her if everything was okay. She smiled that soft, practiced smile, the kind people give when they're lying gently. I believed it. Because love makes you stupidly loyal to the version of someone you want to believe in. I started noticing what I didn't want to see. Perfume that wasn't the one I gifted her. A laugh that was a little too excited when her phone buzzed. Eyes that didn't light up the same way when they looked at me. It felt like watching my home slowly turn into a stranger's house, and yet I stayed quiet. I convinced myself it was just a rough patch. I held on to the woman I loved even though she was already slipping away. But the thing about masks is they always crack. And when they do, the truth doesn't whisper. It hits you like a blade you never saw coming. Doubt has a strange way of settling in. It doesn't burst through the door. It slips in like a shadow under the light. It hides behind every I love you, every casual smile, every moment that used to feel real. I'd wake up beside Alara and realize I was lying next to someone I was starting to no longer recognize. She still looked the same. But something in the air between us, it had changed. Little things began to stand out. The kind of details most people would miss if they weren't already suspicious. There was this new perfume, sharp, floral, not the soft vanilla scent she'd always worn. She never mentioned buying it. And when I asked about it casually, she laughed it off like it was nothing. But the way her fingers fidgeted as she answered told a different story. Her phone became her second heartbeat. Before, it would lie around the house like any other object. Now it followed her everywhere. Into the kitchen, the bathroom. Even when she went out to the balcony, she'd hold it tight like a secret she couldn't risk losing. I started noticing how quickly she'd angled the screen away when I walked into the room. How she suddenly laughed at messages she never explained. And then there were the lies. Not the big, obvious ones. The small, polished ones that are harder to catch because they're wrapped in charm. She'd say she was working late, but I'd hear the music of a restaurant in the background during a call. She'd tell me she was tired, then disappear for hours the next day. And when I tried to piece the puzzle together, she'd tilt her head, smile softly, and make me feel like I was the one imagining things. One night, my friend Darian came over. He's known me since we were kids. The kind of friend who can read your silences better than your words. He sat down, took one look at me, and said, "You're not sleeping, man." He'd seen enough in his own life to recognize that kind of quiet storm. When I told him about the perfume, the phone, the stories that didn't add up, he didn't say, "Maybe it's nothing." He just gave me a look that said, "You already know." That was the worst part. Deep down, I did. But I was still hanging on to hope, like a fool gripping the edge of a burning rope. I wanted to believe this was just a passing phase, that the woman I loved wouldn't betray me like this. But love doesn't protect you from the truth. It just makes the impact harder when the truth finally hits. And the whispers in my chest. They weren't whispers anymore, they were turning into screams. The night everything broke wasn't planned. I didn't wake up that morning deciding to follow her. But sometimes the truth doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It shows up when your heart is already tired of pretending it doesn't see the signs. That Friday evening, something in me finally stopped making excuses for her. It wasn't anger yet, just a quiet kind of resolve. The kind that comes when you're done lying to yourself. She said she had a late strategy meeting with her team. She said it with that same practiced smile she'd been wearing for weeks now. I remember watching her fix her hair in the mirror. It wasn't the way someone gets ready for work. It was slower, more intentional, like she wanted to be seen. She left the house in a fitted black dress I hadn't seen in months. The one she used to wear when she wanted to make me feel like the luckiest man alive. That night, it wasn't for me. I waited a few minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys. My heart was beating too fast to think straight, but my mind was sharper than it had been in weeks. I drove with the headlights off for a while, following the familiar sound of her tires on the road. I didn't know what I'd find. Part of me still wanted to be wrong. Prayed. Not to catch her, but to find a reason to still trust her. But when she pulled up outside that restaurant, I knew. She walked in without looking around, smiling the way she used to smile at me. And then I saw him. Cassian, the man she'd once introduced casually as a work friend. The man whose name she said like it meant nothing. He was already there, waiting for her. And the way they looked at each other, God, it was like I had ceased to exist long before that night. I stayed in the shadows, watching them laugh like they were living in a world without consequences. Her hand touched his like it belonged there. He leaned closer, and she didn't pull away. Something in me shattered, but not loudly. It was a quiet break, the kind that doesn't echo. I didn't storm in. I didn't make a scene. I pulled out my phone, and with a hand that barely shook, I hit record. Every laugh, every touch, every stolen moment. I captured it all. It's not for revenge yet, but because I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. That the whispers in my chest had been telling the truth all along. As I drove home that night, my heart felt hollow, but my mind clear. For the first time in months, I wasn't lost in confusion anymore. The mask had finally fallen. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. That was the night I stopped being the man who loved her blindly. That was the night I became the man who would make her face everything she thought she'd hidden. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was broken, but because for the first time in a long time, I saw everything clearly. It's strange how clarity doesn't always come with peace. Sometimes it arrives hand in hand with rage so quiet it feels colder than any scream. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every lie she'd ever told me. Every moment I'd blamed myself for what she was doing behind my back, and slowly, something shifted inside me.
Ow.
I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to cry. I wanted her to face the kind of truth she couldn't run from. The old version of me would have confronted her the next morning. I would have asked questions she'd answer with pretty lies. But that Callan was gone. What replaced him was a man who understood that the sharpest kind of revenge isn't loud. It's devastatingly precise. Ilara had spent months building a secret life, but she forgot one thing. I knew her better than anyone. I knew what mattered to her. I knew what would hurt the most. She worshipped the image her parents had of her, the perfect daughter, the loyal wife. She could lie to me. She couldn't stand the thought of them seeing her for who she truly was. And that's exactly where karma would strike. The next afternoon, while she was at work, I made a call. Her parents adored me. They'd trusted me from the moment I entered their family. I told them I wanted to surprise Alara with a dinner, something intimate, something special. I could hear the warmth in her mother's voice. She said it was a beautiful idea. She said they'd love to be there. I gave them the name of the restaurant, the same one where she and Cassian thought they were invisible. When I hung up, there was no smile on my face, no thrill, just a steady, quiet heartbeat. I wasn't seeking drama. I was crafting justice. I spent the next few days pretending like nothing had changed. I looked her in the eyes and matched her performance with one of my own. It almost felt poetic watching her rehearse lies while I silently rehearsed the end of her act. She'd chosen the wrong man to betray. By the time the reservation was confirmed, I wasn't the same husband she thought she could deceive. I wasn't going to confront her behind closed doors. I was going to let the truth walk right up to her, sit across from her, and tear down everything she tried to protect. Karma wasn't coming like a storm. It was coming with a dinner reservation. The night of the dinner arrived with a strange stillness in the air. You know that quiet before a storm, the one where everything feels almost too calm? That's how it felt. Alara moved around the house, humming softly, picking a dress like it was just another night. But I knew, and somewhere deep inside, a part of her must have felt the shift too. It was in the way she glanced at me when she thought I wasn't looking, like she could sense that the ground beneath her was about to move. She told me she had plans with a friend. I didn't ask which one. I didn't need to. I just nodded. I'd stopped giving her the courtesy of pretending I believed her. She left earlier than usual, looking radiant in a way she used to reserve only for me, and I followed. Not in the shadows this time, not like the night I discovered her secret. No, this time. I walked in with the certainty of a man who already held every card. When I arrived at the restaurant, I didn't rush to the door. I took my time. My steps were steady, deliberate, as if the universe itself was pacing with me. She was already there, seated with Cassian. That smile of hers. It cut through me, not because it hurt anymore, but because I finally saw it for what it was, hollow. I sat at the bar just far enough to watch. They looked so proud of their secret, laughing in their little world. But secrets rot when light hits them, and that light was about to walk through the door. Her parents arrived right on time, dressed like they were stepping into a celebration. They were smiling, God. They were smiling because they still believed in their daughter's story. The waiter led them toward the table next to hers. I didn't move. I didn't have to. The moment Alara's eyes met theirs, the world she built cracked like glass under pressure. Her father's smile froze. Her mother's hand stopped midair. Cassian looked confused for half a second before his face twisted into panic. But Alara, she went pale. She didn't even try to stand. She just stared at them like a trapped animal, caught in a spotlight she couldn't escape. I walked over slowly. Not to yell, not to throw anything. I placed my phone on the table, pressed play, and let her own laughter with Cassian fill the space. It was louder now. Louder than her excuses, louder than her silence. Her father's hand slammed against the table. Her mother whispered her name like it broke her. Cassian tried to leave. I didn't touch him, but he stopped when I looked at him. Alara's world wasn't a secret anymore. It was a spectacle one she'd created, and one karma had chosen to expose. And in that moment, I didn't need revenge. The truth was doing all the work for me. The silence that followed that night was heavier than any scream could ever be. When her parents walked away from that table, I knew something inside her had collapsed for good. It wasn't just her secret that was gone. It was the story she'd carefully built, the image she wore like a crown. And now, all that was left was the woman beneath it, exposed, trembling, alone. I walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Not because I didn't want to see her face, but because I didn't need to. Her silence was enough. I could feel her behind me, her breath catching, her heels scraping against the pavement as she followed me outside. She called my name, her voice breaking like glass under pressure. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. It's strange how, when you love someone, their voice has the power to make you stop. But when they break that love, the same voice turns into background noise. That night, her cries didn't shake me. They barely reached me. I'd spent months trapped in a maze of her lies, twisting myself to fit the shape of her betrayal. But now, I was free. She ran up beside me, her eyes wide and wet, words spilling out excuses, apologies, fragments of sentences that meant nothing. She wanted to explain the unexplainable. She wanted to fix what she'd burned down with her own hands. But there's a point where words don't matter anymore. She had crossed it long ago. I can explain, she kept saying. But betrayal doesn't need an explanation. It needs consequences. And she was standing right in the middle of hers. Cassian didn't come after her. Of course he didn't. Men like him are brave when the lights are dim, when the world isn't watching. But when the truth shows its teeth, they run. She turned to look for him once, and when she saw he was gone, something in her cracked again. And I didn't feel pity. Not anymore. When we reached the parking lot, she grabbed my hand. For a second, everything froze, the warmth of her skin against mine, the familiarity of a touch that used to mean everything. But it didn't pull me back. It reminded me why I had to let go. I pulled my hand away gently. No yelling. No theatrics. Just quiet finality. And then I walked to my car, leaving her standing in the dark with the mess she made. For once, the silence didn't belong to me. It belonged to her. And I knew. It would echo louder in her chest than any words I could ever say. I never believed in karma the way people talk about it, until the night it knocked on her door wearing the face of everything she once feared. I still remember standing on that quiet balcony, looking at the city below like it was breathing with me. For the first time in months, I wasn't suffocating. The storm inside me had finally found its way out, not through revenge, not through shouting, but through something far more poetic, karma, doing its work in silence. She thought she could build a new life on lies, that what we had could be buried without consequence. But the thing about betrayal is, it leaves fingerprints on everything, and eventually, the truth knows how to find its way home. I didn't have to say a word. I didn't have to set a trap. Life did it for me. One by one, the walls she built around her affair began to collapse. The man she left me for wasn't who she thought he was. He lied, cheated, and used her the same way she used me. And when she finally fell apart, she looked for the hand she once pushed away. But I wasn't there anymore. I watched her from a distance, not out of cruelty, but clarity. I had already burned through the pain, through the nights when her laughter in someone else's arms was a knife in my chest. What remained was peace. Cold, quiet peace. She tried to call. She sent messages. Even stood outside my new apartment once. But there are some doors karma closes so tightly, not even apologies can break them open. I walked forward without looking back. My success wasn't loud. It was calm. My healing wasn't perfect. It was honest, and hers. Well, hers came with the realization that she traded something real for something temporary. The funny thing about timing is it never misses. Karma doesn't rush. It waits for the perfect moment to arrive. And when it does, it's not there to destroy you. It's there to teach. That night, as the wind brushed against my face, I smiled not because she got what she deserved, but because I finally got what I needed. Closure. And in that quiet moment, I knew karma's timing is never late. It's just patient,